So you've learned about the 4 basic concepts. So now we're going to start out with the first one. That's proximity. Most of the time with beginner designers, there's usually words and phrases that are just all over the page, sometimes turned different ways, filling up the corners and taking up lots of room, basically so that there won't be any empty space left. It's almost like they're afraid of this empty space. But when pieces of the design are scattered all over the place, the page will appear very unorganized and information won't be instantly accessible to the reader. The principle of proximity states that you group relative items together. Move them physically closer to each other so that related items are seen as one comprehensive group rather than a bunch of unrelated bits. Items or pieces of information that are not related to each other should not be in close proximity to each other. In other words, separate them. If it goes together, put it together. If it doesn't, separate it. Fairly simple concept. Doing this gives the reader an instant visual clue as to the organization and the content of the page. Here's an example. In the list on the left, what do you assume about all the cars? Probably that they have something in common, right? In the list on the right, what do you assume? It appears that the last 4 cars somehow are different than the others. You understand this instantly, and you understand it without even being conscious of it. You know that the last 4 cars are somehow different because they are physically separated from the other cars. That's the concept of proximity. On a page, as in life, physical closeness implies relationship. Take a look at this typical beginner's business card layout. How many separate elements do you see in that small space? How many times does your eyes stop to look at something? Does your eye stop 5 times? Yeah. There's 5 separate items on the little card. Where do you begin reading? In the middle, probably, because the phrase is the boldest. What do you read next? Left to right, because you read English? What happens when you get to the bottom right-hand corner? Where does your eye go? Or do you just kind of keep ping-ponging around the card, making sure you didn't miss anything and hoping that you're done? Here, let me confuse the situation a little further. Now that there are 2 bold phrases, where do you begin? You start in the upper left or start in the center? After you read the 2 items, where do you go? Perhaps you bounce to the bottom. Or is the top right more important? Anyway, how do you know you're finished? When you've read everything, make sure you keep circling around. What do you do? When several items are in close proximity to each other, they become one visual unit rather than several separate items. As in life, the proximity or closeness implies a relationship. By grouping similar elements into one unit, several things happen. The page becomes more organized, you understand where to begin reading the message, and you know exactly when you're finished. And the white space becomes a lot more well organized. The problem with the previous card is that none of the items on the card seemed related to one another. It's not clear where you should begin reading or where you're finished. Let's regroup these items for just a second and watch what happens. Now, is there any question about where you need to begin reading the card? Where you need to go next? Do you know when you're finished? With that one simple concept, this card is now organized and it communicates a lot more clearly. Now this has just been one example of proximity. And as we go into further lessons, I'll show you more and more examples. But understand that proximity is grouping. Group things together that belong together, separate things that don't belong together. And if you happen to be enjoying these lessons, go ahead and click the like button and subscribe to the channel so that you get the updates when I upload more videos.